Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into the profound, fascinating, and honestly sometimes fiercely provocative worldview of the late Czech-French author Milan Kundera. We'll be looking closely at his absolute masterpieces, primarily The Unbearable Lightness of Being and Immortality, to really understand his completely unique take on the human condition. We're going to take a journey today that moves from the deeply personal, messy struggles of romantic relationships all the way out to the grand, dangerous illusions of totalitarian politics. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this, so let's jump right in. Let me hit you with a question right off the bat. Would you rather live a life of absolute freedom or a life of heavy burden? I mean, it sounds like a total no-brainer, right? Who wouldn't pick freedom? But as we're going to see, this exact question sits at the very heart of Kundera's entire philosophy. And the answer? Well, it's a lot more complicated and, quite frankly, a lot more painful than it first appears. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start off with lightness versus weight, then explore the burden of love. From there, we'll define kitsch, look at the illusion of perfection, and finally, we'll wrap things up with questions, not answers. Let's do this. Section 1, Lightness versus Weight. So, Kundera presents us with two radically opposing views on how to live. On the heavy side, we've got philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of eternal return. Just imagine for a second if every single choice you ever made repeated infinitely, forever. That assigns an unbearable weight and just immense responsibility to every single action. It's heavy. But Kundera counters this with the light view, captured perfectly by the German phrase einmal ist kein Mal, basically meaning what happens but once might as well not have happened at all. If your life is fleeting and it doesn't repeat, you have absolute freedom, but your choices carry no lasting meaning. It's incredibly light, sure, but it's completely empty. Section 2, the burden of love. How do these super abstract philosophical concepts actually look in the real world? Well, we see these two poles of human desire perfectly illustrated through two incredible women in Kundera's work. On one side, we have Sabina. She is the ultimate representation of extreme lightness. For her, living means breaking ranks. She engages in erotic friendships with zero sentimentality, and she's constantly betraying constraints just to remain completely, radically free. On the flip side is Tereza, who embodies the inescapable weight of love. She demands profound responsibility, absolute commitment, and she's desperately seeking a heavy, soulful connection. So you get this stark contrast. Sabina's freedom is isolating, while Tereza's love is deeply exhausting. So where do the rest of us fit into this puzzle? Take Tomas, a surgeon who is caught right smack in the middle. He loves Tereza and genuinely desires her heavy tenderness, but the guy is completely addicted to Sabina's lightness and his own fleeting freedom. Then you've got Franz. He's an academic idealist who is entirely weighed down by loyalty to his memories and this desperate search for deep meaning. The absolutely crucial point here is that human life is a restless oscillation. We bounce back and forth. We desperately want freedom when we feel trapped, but the second we feel lonely, we crave the heavy burden of meaning.
Section 3, Defining Kitsch and Shit. And yes, we're going there.
Get ready, because we are about to completely shake up your preconceived notions of what bad art really means. Normally, we think of kitsch as tacky souvenirs or melodramatic, cheesy art. But Kundera elevates it to a whole metaphysical concept. He literally defines kitsch as the absolute denial of shit. And he means that both literally and figuratively. Kitsch is an attitude. It categorically excludes anything unacceptable, weak, ugly, or mortal from human existence. It is the very illusion that the world is inherently pure and perfect. To really drive home this clash between high ideals and base reality, Kundera shares this darkly tragicomic anecdote about Stalin's son, Yakov. Yakov was a prisoner of war, and the story goes that he shared latrines with British officers. They fought endlessly over the cleanliness of these toilets. Finally, the German camp commander refused to mediate a dispute over something as vulgar as excrement. Unable to bear this humiliating clash between his elevated, high-status identity and the most basic, dirty human reality, Yakov threw himself onto an electrified fence. As Kundera points out, he essentially gave his life for shit. It completely proves that even the highest, most absolute ideals cannot escape basic human frailty.
Let's be real, reality is messy. It's mortal. And it's often downright ugly. So humans use kitsch to cover it all up. Kitsch acts as this rosy veil. It allows us to sublimate our lives, to somehow make the absolute misery of the human condition bearable. It taps into this deeply rooted desire for a profane eternity, an illusion of a harmonious, idyllic world where everyone is smiling and nothing ever rots. But as incredibly comforting as that sounds, it's a dangerous, dangerous lie.
Section 4. The illusion of perfection.
Now let's see what happens when this aesthetic desire for a perfect, conflict-free world is weaponized in the realm of politics. Kundera's philosophy didn't just emerge in a vacuum, right? It was forged in the absolute fire of 20th century totalitarianism. Following the brief political liberalization of the 1968 Prague Spring, Soviet tanks rolled in and invaded Czechoslovakia. Kundera lived this. His works were banned, he lost his job, and in 1975 he went into exile in France. They eventually revoked his citizenship entirely. He saw firsthand exactly how regimes enforce compliance, which ultimately led to the global publication of his masterpiece in 1984.
Here is what Kundera realized. Totalitarianism relies completely on political kitsch. Regimes weaponize that rosy veil we talked about by completely abolishing the line between private and public life. They demand a mandatory idyllic smile from the public. They project an image of society as one great family, and anyone who brings up doubt, imperfection, or complexity, the figurative shit of reality, well, they threaten that perfect image, so they must be erased. Kitsch, when it comes to politics, is an institutionalized lie.
But wait, it gets even more relevant for us today. Later, in his novel Immortality, Kundera warns us that this isn't just a problem isolated to communist dictatorships. He points straight at modern society's creation of what he calls homo sentimentalis and the rise of imaginology. This is a world where truth and complex ideology are entirely replaced by the tyranny of pure emotion, marketing, and the cult of the image. We literally stop caring about facts and start caring only about how things feel and how they look. It's almost like a softer totalitarianism of sentimentality.
Section 5. Questions, not answers.
So how do we fight back? How do we combat the unbearable lightness of existence, the crushing weight of responsibility, and that dangerous rosy veil of political kitsch? Well, Kundera famously stated that the totalitarian world is a world of answers rather than questions. Dogma, kitsch, and tyranny all share one massive thing in common. They demand easy, absolute answers. They judge rather than understand. They present a false harmony that brooks absolutely no debate. And that is why Kundera argues that the highest purpose of the novel, and really of art itself, is to push back against the noisy foolishness of human certainties. The novel doesn't exist to give you answers. It exists to ask questions. It embraces ambiguity. It shows that everyone has their reasons, fiercely protecting our individual autonomy. The job of good art is to tear down that rosy veil of kitsch and force us to look at the beautifully imperfect, wildly complex reality of just being human.
Which brings us right back to where we started today. I want to leave you with this final thought to really ponder. Are you drawn to the unbearable lightness of freedom with its total lack of meaning? Or do you crave the inescapable weight of responsibility with all its beautiful, heavy burdens? There are no easy answers here, folks, only absolutely fascinating questions. I really hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity to go out and explore Kundera's incredible works for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning.